Well, during my period at Albuquerque, I managed to qualify as a qualified bombardier and was promoted to as a second lieutenant. Went to Shreveport, Louisiana, from Shreveport to Lake Charles. At Lake Charles, I met up with Bob Brockett,
Hmm.
and he requested that I be assigned to his crew as a bombardier.
So it turned out you guys reconnected.
Yes, we met up again, but I was not a celestial navigator at the time, and he was flying overseas with his aircraft to North Africa, and then from North Africa they'd end up in England. Well, I was sent to New York with a few other bombardiers that were taken off their crews so celestial navigators could replace them. And I flew over on a commercial airliner at the time that was full of colonels and generals, etc., and we were lowly second lieutenants. We felt somewhat out of place, but we landed in Scotland, I think it was, and from there, why we were eventually assigned to. I'm at a loss here to recall the name of it.
Oh,
The air base
oh yeah.
in
One of them.
England.
Yeah, yeah. But you started doing your missions over there, and then you went to France after that. In England, you did a few missions.
Well, uh, yeah, I went through training with Brockett and his crew, and we were assigned to the 558th Bomb Squadron. And on our first checkout mission, we were assigned to a experienced pilot to take over in the left seat, and Brockett moved over to the co-pilot seat, and that put Ben Hicks left behind, and I was in the nose as a bombardier. Of course, at that time I had no bomb sight, but it was just the experience of being on a initial mission and
Hmm.
getting that experience that I would need later on. Well, on the way over, it was all cloud coverage, and the pilot decided, for some reason, he didn't like the sound of the engine. I don't know whether it was because something was wrong or because he had qualified to go home already, and he maybe he just decided that he didn't want to continue. So he said he was aborting, and we aborted. Well, I was an inexperienced combat person, but I assumed that I was expected to give him a heading back, which I did as a navigator. Using dead reckoning, I gave him a heading back to the home base, and had to make sure that we did not fly over London, which would shoot at anything that flew over the city. And after a few corrections and headings and arriving at our ETA, I informed the pilot we should be there. And he said, well, I don't see anything I recognize. And then there was a long pause, and after a bit, he says, the reason I don't see anything I recognize, we're directly over the field. So
Good
we
job.
landed, and after landing, a truck pulled up to the aircraft and said that the colonel, or Colonel Keller, wants to see you. I don't know whether he was a major or a colonel at that time. I went in, and he says, what are they teaching you in the States? I said, well, they're teaching us to bomb and to navigate. He says, well, how would you like to be a navigator and navigate the groups in and out? Like, I said, I prefer to be a bombardier. And he wanted to know why, and I said, well, my family was at Pearl Harbor when it was bombed, and I want to be a bombardier. And he let it go at that. And I said, but I never had any training as to flying evasive action. And he very patiently explained his method of flying evasive action, which I think was quite important to me and contributed a lot to the success of my bombing. And that was my first experience in a B-26 flying across the English Channel.
You remember what he said about the evasive action?
Oh yeah, he said, to begin with, it takes a shell on the ground about so many seconds to reach you at an altitude of 12,000 feet. And that aircraft, your aircraft, has to be tracked a certain time to determine your speed and direction. And a total, it takes about 15 seconds for a shell to reach you by the time they decide to shoot at you. And if you hear the explosion, you don't have to worry, because you're still alive. And I appreciated that, and it made a deep impression on me. I used to adhere to that advice by keeping my watch at an angle on my wrist where I can watch the second hand continually and never fly straight and level longer than 15 seconds when we were over enemy territory under fire. And there were times that after missions where other pilots would come up and say, call me by my first name, or Butterballs, or Buttercup, or instead of Butterfield. That was great. That evasive action, just as you turned, there was an explosion where we were going to be.